Hello, and end of the first year of Raucus attempts Esports. There's been quite a hiatus of posts after the first lockdown, when I was kind of training and figuring everything out, which kind of ended with this Excite energy drinks. It was a charity race for the NHS. I first kind of put my head above the parapet and tried to take place in something other than the kind of pre-arranged iRacing platforms official series, which are fairly beginner friendly once you figure everything out to get into. This was a kind of invitational, so you paid a bit of charity money towards the cause, and you could take part, and there was all sorts of people from all different kind of levels of motor racing. I was obviously probably one of the rookies here. There might have been a couple of other people as well looking to get involved, so I made an effort, painted up the car and gave it a go. So I didn't do overall as bad as I was worried I might have done. It wasn't fantastic, but I mean, in the main first race I kind of dodged enough traffic and crashes and came about 13th, I think, in the end, which I was pretty happy with. Qualified 18th. I think there was about 30, maybe more people in the server, so I did okay. That probably wasn't based purely on pace. That was probably a bit of luck with other people's mishaps as well, but it kind of gave me a bit of a flavour for getting out and doing something in a more kind of organised environment. And that was after having a chat with the UK's racing advisor, I suppose, for Esports, Phil Russell, and he put me on to some good things to get involved with, and I don't think this was one of them, but it came up about the same time when I was looking at options and seeing how to get yourself out there. And after I'd done this, I continued looking and then spotted the Motorsport UK series, which happened to come up just because they couldn't actually go motor racing, so they decided to move things online. There's a lot of actual racing drivers from kind of mid-tier racing series involved in it, so it was a good find. I had to buy myself a paddock pass, which obviously never got a chance to use on actual tracks, but it got me through to this. But yeah, put it on pole for the first race, which I was pretty pleased about. Massive wheel spin off the line. I think I had some nerves, but then yeah, well, this is quite a nice shot because you can see it wasn't just me. Absolute carnage ensued. If I'd not had the wheel spin, I probably would have got away from all of this intact, but thankfully the race had damage turned off for this first one, so, which I didn't know, so I was being as careful as I could, and thinking it was an absolute miracle that I had avoided all of this absolute carnage. But it certainly made for an entertaining watch back. It was quite a surprise, and I think I've seen some other people who put videos up also surprised at the kind of level of racing. I think they were expecting things to be a bit higher quality, but I think there was a lot of people in this League 6 that were not used to iRacing or sim racing at all, and they were just kind of throwing their hat in the ring because it was lockdown and looking for things to do. But yeah, I was pleased to get pole position. I think it had been because I've been practicing this track for the Excite Energy race quite recently. I think it was literally the week before in the MX-5s, so I was pretty warmed up. It did actually make for a pretty exciting first race, aside from all of the stuff going on around. Not getting taken out with damage, actually they did ultimately change that, I think, because of people's behaviour, but it meant that you could push through if you had the pace, and obviously you have to try and be respectful, but if people aren't being respectful for you, it's less likely to just completely end your race instantaneously, because these F3 cars, once they turned damage on, it became quite apparent they were very, very delicate. But in this race I just had kind of blind fury because I was angry at myself for the start, having been on pole when I knew I had obviously the pace of the rest of the field. So I just head down and charge, and a lot of people cleared themselves out of the way, which was nice, but there was some hard racing in there as well. Gave me a way to kind of eye up some of the competition throughout the field that I was going to be facing for the rest of the season. As a complete rookie as well, watching it back, things I had to learn throughout. The starts were consistently one of my problems this season. It's something I'll have to look at and kind of work on going forward if I continue to do things, which I do want to do. And race pace was one of my better aspects, and that continued to be the case. I did struggle a little bit in qualifying, especially mid-season when they changed the kind of the patches of how the tyres work, and it really changed the warm-up period at the beginning of the race, and your car is like skating on ice to begin with, whereas at the beginning of the season here, these tyres just switched on almost instantaneously, and they just got better and better and better, which is quite nice for a beginner car, really. But yeah, using the toe and getting the advantages, staying out of trouble. I won't mention any names because I don't believe we were meant to stream this or live stream it because it was behind closed doors and there might be younger people involved. But obviously no one's going to know who's who because they weren't in the league, or what colour car people had. But I can point out repeat offenders and people to watch throughout this. So this is going to be a bit of a journey from the beginning to the end of the year, watching back. I've kind of loosely stitched everything together so you're not seeing all the boring bits, but these are the exciting parts, and the momentous parts can be seconds almost that change the course of my journey through the league this year. But yeah, the chap in front here, he turned out to be a pretty regular racer at the top of the field. Haven't watched closely all of this through, and I've got a whiskey in my hand. It's quite nice to reflect and see how close some of the competition was. When you're in the heat at the moment, you tend to not really be paying too much attention really to the grander scheme of things. But yeah, obviously this guy has overtaken me, and he'll continue to be competitive throughout the season. Obviously at this point I don't know where people kind of stand, but yeah, following him through. I think this car here as well, the black car, also had some good battles with later on. Some people tended to kind of pick it up later in the season and get better and better. Some people seem to disappear or drop off the pace. I think with damage turned on, it probably pushed a lot of people that weren't already in the contention out of sync with the series, just because it is very frustrating to put a lot of time and effort into practicing for something that can be over in the first corner. It certainly wound me up enough times, but I was at the front most of the time, so it was kind of always driving me to try and keep going and win the series ultimately. But yeah, the two in front, they were right up there. That's the first race of the season. I don't know if there was contact there, but that's uncharacteristic for the orange car there. It was pretty quick and pretty consistent, very solid throughout really. Same with blue car here. He was always on the money with the pace and very consistent with lap times and car control. I don't remember having any touches with him. He was quite fair with space. Quite a hard racer though. In practice, learning that this corner was so critical to the lap, really sticking it to that inside curb, and then you can see we both do it here, really cutting that actually shaved off a fairly useful amount of time. But running behind in these F3 cars, the amount of pace you gain from the slipstream is just phenomenal across a lap, so it's a pretty big disadvantage to be ahead unless you can really break that, which is tricky to do if there's not brake checking involved or controlling the pace around back markers, because you've got to be respectful. Brake checking is a big no-no, even though I'm pretty sure I had it done to me a couple of times. But yeah, I wanted to follow through here, but this is, I think, for position. I don't think it was a back marker, so it's closing the door on us. Yeah, a little bit of a snatch of the brake there, not too messy though. One of the points of this season was and the reason it was behind closed doors was to allow people to get into this kind of scene, practice their racecraft and kind of learn as much as you can really in a competitive field with like-minded people. That was the purpose of it really. It wasn't like massive prize pot money or anything like that. And certainly things like trail braking, lifting off when you're braking if you're starting to skid, because the more you brake the worse it gets. That's something that I kind of knew, but to change the muscle memory is quite hard. So avoiding and getting out of pickle if you've got yourself into one, that's something I did get better at throughout the season. Maybe the opportunities I went for sometimes didn't come off, but I think especially if it's a lap 1 incident, it happens. You can't always be right, and it's split second reactions. You don't know what the other driver's thinking, so it's, yeah, you're always hard on yourself when you look and watch things back, but learning to kind of deal with that frustration is quite tricky. So you can see went really wide there. Maybe he thought I was closer up the inside, but again, it's a rare mistake by him, but it's first race of the season, so I'll happily pick another person off. And yeah, I think there may be one more person I had to overtake, and then a few more people moved themselves out of the way across the lap, but that put me eventually back up into third place. There was no way I was catching up with the top 2, I don't think, in the end, because there was they'd had any errors. Obviously I had that spin at the start, and they just kind of cantered away into the horizon. There was something certainly coming out of this race. I realised, even though I survived all the damage, and I didn't realise it was because damage wasn't turned on. There you go, passing a couple more spins. Just keeping it clean is just so important. So I think you'll see here someone at the back there is a bit of a misstart. But I really just tried to keep this clean. I knew this first corner, people spear in, yeah, already there, you can see people do it. I'm just trying to stay out of the way. Someone spins. Here I come back onto the track a bit too sharp and catch someone, so I'm pretty sure that was my bad there. Don't think they were in the wrong. Thankfully we did have damage turned off, because it's never a nice feeling to end someone else's race when it's your mistake. Yeah, I really like the kind of the smoke and the damage graphics on this. So I had to upgrade my graphics card halfway through, so the kind of the car modelling and the environment looks a little bit nicer. But it's really the physics that makes this iRacing platform what it is. Well, and you can see netcode even when you're not near someone. Still, it's a little bit dicey. That got better, I think, when you had damage turned off. There must be something that's like a protective box around you, because you see it a few times where you're not actually near someone but it registers contact. But yeah, it's, apart from the odd kind of popping in and out of cars, the odd bit of weird netcode contact, the actual feel of the actual car is phenomenal, and it is very competitive, because it's the best simulation I've had using a wheel. It doesn't feel arcadey at all. There's good consistency. It doesn't really feel like there's any particular like unfair advantages, like if you know how to, I don't know, kind of drive it a certain way, you'll get an advantage. It is as close, I think, and from what I can make out, to real racing practices and techniques as possible. Learning just keeping consistent power down is pretty much the best way of sticking the car to the track, especially when it's a single seater with huge amounts of downforce. Anytime you're lifting off and coasting around, or worrying you're going too fast and you lift off and you're not quite braking and you're not quite accelerating, those middle periods are really dangerous. You're just kind of a kind of passenger really at that point. You can see that's one of them. I must have been not quite on the brake, not quite on the accelerator, and I'm still turning, then put the power back down, and you just spin. It has to be absolute kind of evenness of power and pressure. So that was, again, that's another mistake by me. Second race, I think I was up to second there, and yeah, spun it, and that put me out of contention there, because I was doing pretty well. I was pretty quick in Spa, but I did push on, and I think this chap, we spoke a couple of times, who also has a YouTube channel as well. He's a pretty good racer, and we had some pretty fair fights. But yeah, I managed to kind of pick his tail up and almost got him up to the line, but being fair and not wanting to put any banzai moves in, which I think was the right decision. As you'll see at the end, in hindsight you think, maybe I could have put the power down early and got there, but at the same time I could have just as easily have spun, and I wasn't that far ahead, so I didn't feel too hard done by. I'd made mistakes. It was my own things that put me in third again. So you see I come right in here, he locks up a little bit, I get a good run through the corners, and yeah, there's just enough room there between our wheels on the inside there. If I'd hammered the throttle, I probably could have pushed up a bit, but the run to the line here is so short, I don't really know if it would have made that much difference. Race 3, we went to Monza. Carnage in the background as usual in these early races. Thankfully someone just about backed out of it there and let me get some space, and that pretty much just released me for the rest of the race. The toe is so powerful here that once they'd backed off there and gave me some breathing space, and I just hammered the lap time in, I was pretty much free and clear, and that continued for the rest of the race really, bar one spectacular incident, which I did save. It's one of my highlights, I think, of the season. The only frustrating thing was this race was eventually rerun due to the fact that they didn't send the invites out to half of the field. So I had a problem with a back marker in the rerun on kind of one of the last laps of the race, and I had to give up first place. Took second in the end, which was a bit of a shame, but still good result. I did have the pace around here quite clearly. I was miles ahead both races. It's just, yeah, it's a shame. And again, it was one of those moments where I had to lift off because I was avoiding something and just couldn't quite. I wasn't quite braking, wasn't quite accelerating, and it just shifted the car. But yeah, this was another track I had quite good experience with, because mid kind of season there was a Ford Esports event. They were looking for some more drivers. So it's the team that Phil Russell drives for. He drives for Team Fordzilla. It was on the Xbox. It was partly around Monza as well, though, which I quite enjoyed. But I was using a wheel. Everyone was on a controller, so I was pretty badly beaten. The advantage on Xbox with the controller is worth about 10 to 20 seconds of that, which is insane. But yeah, that was my spectacular save. And in that instance I did go on to take a race win, fastest lap, and obviously I had pole as well, which is quite a nice achievement. Snetterton, I really didn't feel that comfortable around here. It's not a track I've ever raced before. I did put a bit of practice in to kind of get it figured, and I did take pole, which I was pleased with. But it's the runoffs, it's like ice, just an inch off the track here, and you're always pushing right up to the edge of the white line, and it's, yeah, as you'll see shortly, you just dip there, just a tiny dip, and that's it. I was lucky enough to keep it going in a straight line, but yeah, at least two people past me, and I was just having to cling on to the back of them for the rest of the race, and didn't really go much further than that. But still, third place and a pole, it's not a bad start. So my early campaign I was fairly happy with. It wasn't exactly perfect each time, but it never usually is. Back to another kind of straight line circuit, Montreal. Eked my way into first place there, just about holding station. Again, these straight line circuits I did seem to do quite well at, especially the Montreal GP track is an F1 staple, and having followed F1 for quite a few years and been a fan of their games for quite a while as well, certainly helps, I think, know where to find the pace, where to find the braking points. And yeah, I was getting pushed pretty hard. The chap behind eventually did overtake me in the championship. Unfortunately, things went significantly downhill in the latter part of the series. I could put it down to things opening back up, being out of lockdown, not having quite so much time to practice. Not sure, but yeah, it certainly fell apart in a pretty dramatic way, given I had at one point, I think it was 70 plus points advantage coming into kind of the midpoint of the season. But yeah, I don't know whether it was adding pressure to myself. I missed a couple of races, had a technical problem, and then just kind of things just started not going my way. And here we go. This was almost a carbon copy of what happened in Monza. Back marker in the track, I had to avoid. And the minute you just open that steering with no power, your car just sails in a weird direction. Yeah, I was getting better at making the saves and getting back going again, but nothing quite beat that Monza 360 and zipped back down the track. But that put me in a second for Montreal, so still not doing too badly there. Pretty happy with the second place, even though I probably should have had a first. I've been leading that the whole way, but then someone had put in the pace to be in the window to pick up that lead when I dropped it, so that's how it works. Fortunately, I wasn't the one to be the receiving end of a gift like that on this season, but you shouldn't really win your races that way. Here again, orange car in front, ended up winning the title in the end. Very consistent. I had to get this recording from someone because I didn't get the download in time at the end of the race, so I do drop in and out a little bit, so it's on someone else's connection. Unfortunately, I didn't pick up pole position on this. I was the slower of the two of us on this occasion, but my race pace seemed to be pretty decent. Again, the tow, when you manage to stay behind, you can really kind of challenge them a lot easier, without having to have that extra probably 2-3 tenths pace, which is quite a lot. And to find that on pure pace with no drag is quite tricky. But yeah, switching sides, I was too close behind, put a tyre on the grass and just no braking. Completely my bad. Luckily at this point still have damage turned off, trying to be respectful there, let people go through. So I went back into the track where I left it, and I think that made a big difference because I didn't get penalised for the time penalty, and I think my competition here did, which allowed me to pass, because we pretty much joined the track at the same time again. And position here is quite important. It's a very undulating track. It puts you off balance quite easily, and if you're carrying speed trying to overtake someone, particularly on this back straight, it goes horribly wrong if you're not quite on the right line. But having a couple of seconds in hand, race pace wise, to some of these kind of slower drivers, the passes weren't quite so bad. I could pick my space and my time a bit easier. I really did enjoy this race. I was a bit annoyed with myself for mucking up my braking and taking out a leader. That's never something you want to do, but the fact that I had the pace to properly push back up after a spin like that and make an impact. So some of it was people like that going straight off in front of me. That always helps, but even without that, I think I probably still would have got past them. My main advantage, I think, was if it doesn't drop out. Going around here, it's pretty solid. I pick up another place here on the inside, but going through these tyre barriers, absolute commitment, and yeah, managing to stick it in third gear through there really gives you the extra tow down the straight. But the trust in the other drivers' braking points around here is tricky, as I've already found out. I think I had it quite nailed, so I could brake quite late. If they can't, you're straight into the back of them, and there's split seconds and millimetres difference sometimes, so it's, yeah, if you're trying to overtake, it does pay, as I found out, to be a little bit more canny, a little bit more patient. Unless it's kind of last lap, or you really have to make a move, stick early or late. Got lucky, no one turned in too sharply there. Still learning to get a bit more instinctual with my gears, missing gear changes. You drop a lot of power, a lot of time. I do that quite a bit, I think, in the early races. Also can snatch the power of you if you miss a gear or something like that, and suddenly put the rotations significantly higher or lower than the car's travelling, then yeah, you're either spinning one way or the other. But yeah, again, third gear right up the back, pushing me quite hard there, but luckily just enough space to get through, and maybe off-sighted a little bit by the carnage ahead. Thankfully, with no damage on, that debris clears and I didn't get any further trouble. And yeah, that put me up into first place. Again, you can see there, bad start, spun the wheels up, come up the inside. They have a little tweak of braking flick right into me. Not much I could do. Looking back, I kind of think, well, should I have gone where I went? And you can see I think I do a different angle here. I take the inside line. People are going to be coming in across. You do get an audio notification saying there's someone on your inside, but it's split seconds, and in the heat of the moment sometimes people aren't thinking about that. You can see the little tweak and then straight into the side of me, and that was, yeah, that put me in P11, which is, yeah, this is where things really start to go downhill. So next track, I think this goes off to I think this is Nürburgring, I believe, because we've got a rolling start, which I wasn't expecting. We hadn't really anticipated doing these, hadn't checked up on the pre-race things, so when it actually got to the race grid I was pretty surprised, but luckily I'd done some kind of touring car races and things and had a bit of practice with knowing what to do, so I managed to keep in touch, waiting for the leader to make a start. Didn't get too caught out or caught napping or anything. Qualified 4th here, so it's quite a competitive grid. People obviously knew this track well. Yeah, the usual early race jitters. You can see they've turned damage on now as bits flying around, same with the previous race. Just trying to bide my time here. I know there's a couple of dangerous corners, people usually go quite wide here, everyone sticks it pretty well. I've got better traction on the inside there, but boom, yeah. So that was a bit frustrating, but I didn't take damage. I just took a bit of a knock to placing, so got back going relatively well. Well, bar one stall. Managed to pick up 4th again after pushing back through the field. But yeah, you're starting to see a couple of knocks and bad starts, and everything's coming unstuck a bit, which is the thing that I just need to, whatever I go on to do, that's the thing that has to be rectified. If you get taken out, there's nothing you can do about that, but the poor starting is really what hurt me, on top of missing a race as well. But then I think when I watch this back, I see a couple of people on the blue car there in the previous race. He gets taken out at the back of the field. It's not just me suffering those, so I think it's fairly evenly spread. But yeah, I was easily the fastest around here by about 6 to 7 tenths of a second, which is quite a big margin for a track, so I was pretty confident. I lost pole by 6,000th of a second, which I was pretty gutted about. But yeah, you can see here someone just sends it up the inside and boom, that's my suspension broken. Yeah, there's just no way at that speed, going straight on into a right hand corner over the grass, you're going to make that corner. And yeah, that was pretty annoying because I would have smashed that race, I think. But ultimately, yeah, but just things continue to just keep going wrong. And yeah, we're coming into the end of the season now, so I can see I'm still in the lead, I think, at this point by, well, I think that race put me out of the lead by about 6 points or something. But yeah, I was getting pretty wound up, but mostly with myself. But here I managed to get a good start. Again, I've not managed to take pole. You can see the orange car here is very quick. He's consistently beating me in qualifying, which is something I obviously needed to work a little bit more on. I had the pace, I just wasn't getting the tyres warmed up, or I wasn't doing something right in that 4 lap period at the beginning. But yeah, kept it clean. Just surviving that beginning of the race seems to be fundamentally important, and incredibly difficult to do. But later in the season, it seems most of the worst culprits for crashes, especially when you're coming back round to the back markers, seem to have disappeared, so there was less problems kind of coming back through on blue flags. Brands Hatch is one of my favourite circuits as well, so I was thoroughly enjoying powering around here. It's a great car for this track as well, especially going through the woods section up the back, and you're absolutely flooring it around right hand corners. This is probably one of my favourite overtaking into the lead is always nice, but yeah, kept it clean. He managed to hold the outside line on me there, which you can't quite see, and then gave him space. Pretty much took the racing line there, so was in a good place, but he did push me for it. Didn't make it easy, and it's nice to make moves like that stick cleanly. Showed me that I'd at least come a little way in racecraft. Managed to hold my line, was trying to push me out there a bit, but yeah, just squeezed him enough to keep the nice outside line where I could carry a bit more speed through there, and then just broke away. Didn't make any mistakes, just held it, and that was that for the race. And this was the final race. I had my nose taken off, smashed it into the back of, just didn't get off the line quickly, and that was that. So yeah, the end of the season really just horrid. But then I finished up with a bit of a fun race, teamed up with Year 1 Racing TV, got involved in their Destruction Derby, just for a bit of fun really, find some new events out there, new people to get involved with, 200 laps of an oval, and a VW Beetle. I came 13th out of about 23, so not wonderful, but considering everyone here was pretty much a more seasoned racer, I think, than I was, wasn't too upset with that. But yeah, over the season of the Motorsport UK Championship, coming third overall, I was very happy with that. Picked up some wins, second place, third place, lots of fastest laps in qualifying and in the race. So yeah, watch this space and hopefully we'll find something interesting to go on and do.